True.
The interesting thing about this game, though, was it was actually the first Steam game I brought, and when I brought it, I didn't even know what Steam was.
But see, the idea of Steam, in principle, the idea of Steam I really liked, because the original idea that was brought across to me was, you buy a copy of this game. So what you are effectively doing is you are buying a license to the intellectual property. And the way Steam is supposed to work was that once you bought that, you own the rights to play that game. So you could therefore go to a completely different country, go to a completely different computer, log in, download that game again, and use it no problem. Because you've now bought the rights for it. And this is a really, really important differentiation. One of the big problems I've had with the bigger publishers, both film, TV, music, and games, is that they're kind of not sure what they're saying. Because they're saying, oh yeah, we don't like you copying this game, buying this game and letting him copy it because he doesn't have the right to have a copy. And so one of the big things that people are saying why EA especially are bringing in DRM on their CDs is not because they're wanting to stop piracy. They're actually wanting to stop you taking it and selling it to EB afterwards and it being on-sold, because that cuts EA out of the deal. So a lot of the DRM stuff currently on PC games is to stop games from being on-sold, because they're saying, oh no, only you've got the rights to this. Now from my point of view, if that is exactly what you're paying for, if I pay my $100 and it gives me the right for the intellectual property, not for the physical disc, I don't have an issue with that, on the assumption that if anything happens to that disc, if I lose it, I break it, I drop it, I can walk straight back into a shop and say, give me another one. Because you're not worried, you're telling me you're not worried about the physical media, you're talking about me having the rights to play the game. Alright, and this is one of the problems with the whole sort of like, what exactly is it that they want you to be paying for? And like there are record companies and movie companies now who are talking about the idea of, they're actually playing around with the idea of a DVD where you go out and you buy the DVD and you can play it twice and then it auto erases. Because they are trying to maximise the amount of money you have. Oh, you've paid the right to watch this a couple of times. Because they don't want you to own it forever, because then you're never going to buy it again.
Well, what you've done is you've actually identified an important point about the way in which the content industry's economics models have changed over the last 30 years. We have moved from an economy based on products to an economy based on licensing. And that's an important distinction. That kind of ability to strategically think and manage rights in a way that you might look at as being conservative or bad or negative, there is also no reason why you can't do the same thing the other way. And that's essentially what Creative Commons is.
And in terms of video games, so how many people here know what like free software with capital F is? Is there enough people with their hands down for me to rant about it?
Do it anyway.
So basically, free software is software that's free software. Yes. With pleasure. So yeah, free software with capital F is, it's part of the same basket as free and open source software. So software but free software specifically guarantees you, as the user of that software, certain freedoms, which are basically there's 4 freedoms, and I'm not going to be able to remember them all, but it's basically the freedom to be able to modify that software, use it whenever you want, share it with other people.
So long as you share the adaptation.
Yeah. So, well, specific licenses, just like the Creative Commons licenses, specific licenses allow you to do different things. So GPL, for example, is the one that really spawned it all. Richard Stallman came up with GPL, and the Linux kernel was, Linus Torvalds was convinced to use the GPL on the Linux kernel, which was a great thing, because what it ensures is if I take the Linux kernel and I make a modification to it, to the source code, make it better or whatever, I have to release everything I've done. So now there are thousands of private companies out there using the kernel in their source code, in their software, and they have to share all their modifications. It's what a lot of people don't realise is every single day you use thousands of pieces of software that are made available thanks to Richard Stallman's work, and I think he really doesn't get enough recognition for this. There's not just the Linux kernel, there's also the whole stack. Yeah, basically the whole internet. I mean, and people don't realise that it is the way it is in large part because this guy went ahead and did this. And if I can just say quickly, there are some strong motivation. I personally release all my software as free software, and the main motivation against releasing your stuff as free software, open source, whatever, people think their ideas are better than they are. Basically, your ideas are shit. My ideas are shit. Ideas are, anyone can come up with ideas. The important thing is executions. But if you release your stuff free software, it gives it just that extra push to be able to be adopted by more people. And it also, you know, my video game has had 3 contributors now, and who've put in various things. It's just kind of cut my development time down by quite a lot. So
does that limit how you? Sorry, well, the question I have is that, and I think this question a lot of people have, is like, well, okay, if my software's free and it's free, it's small f free and capital F free, how do I make a living out of it? And so that's one of the problems, is that there's a lot of people who when you mention the indie game industry, most people sort of think of it the same way as they think of artists. You're living on rice and bread and, you know, in a shared house because that's all you can ever afford. And so I think that's one of the questions of like, how do you give something away free and actually still make some money out of it?
yeah, so when you release free software with a capital F, it doesn't have to be gratis. It doesn't have to be free with a small f. You can sell free software. So you can, for example, provide the source code on your site and sell binaries or something like that. Nobody really does this because it just seems like a weird thing to do. But then the way that a lot of people do make money is through services, through support, through contract work, because they develop the software in the first place.
Likewise, it's an important question that comes up with Creative Commons as well as free software. Just because you're using an open license doesn't mean you have to open license everything you ever make. And this is the sort of point. Like, you can actually make strategic decisions about how and what you license. And likewise, often I find with people working in the content industries, they're not thinking strategically about the breadth of content that they actually have. Like, when you're creating a game, there are so many individual intellectual property elements within that game, all of which are able to be separately licensed and separately managed. There is no reason why you can't CC license an image of the character and still sell the game, and even put the game under an all rights reserved copyright license. I guess this is my point. Like, I'm not saying that everything you ever do should always be free, but that there are actually potentially advantages to thinking more strategically about what you do have and why it's valuable, and finding ways to get that in front of the people who give a shit about it.
Well, especially
what it's about.
with Creative Commons, you've especially got that flexibility of the no commercial license. So what that means is you can give away your piece of art or music or whatever it is to anyone who wants to download it. As soon as you get a corporation or something who hears that great song you've written and they want to use it in an ad, then they have to come to you and you can say, okay, that's $20,000 or whatever. So that's another way of making. Yeah.
This is what I go back to what I said before of, you've got to work out what you want to achieve and which bit you're giving away free, okay? So from the point of view of what I was working on, yes, I was giving the sounds away free under a specific sort of situation, but also I'm potentially monetizing somewhere else. But if you, let's say you want to make your first iPhone game and you think, I want this to be really, really popular. Right? If you've made something that's got a really, really good IP, like a really good character and everything like that, you may be giving away the physical game free. So, you know, Space Invaders 1, you give away free, okay? But you've created an IP, you've created a storyline, you've created characters there, which means if it's really, really good, when the second one comes along, you can go, all right, well, now I've made number 2, and I'm going to start selling this one for $1. And then the next one I'm going to sell for, and then the next one. And so what you've done is you've created the things that are potentially more valuable than that initial sale. Right? That initial sale, you might have gotten a few sales, you might have got $10. Not really worthwhile. If you consider it an investment, that thing that you're giving away free can help establish your identity, your company's identity and reputation, the identity and your IP, and just the whole thing. So by the time you're 3 or 4, you know, iterations of this story down the track, and you've done Space Invaders 10, and, you know, Microsoft will look at it going, well, he's just done 5 versions, and, like, you know, the first one was free, so everybody wanted the sequel, and that sold really well, and these are all on iPhone and iPad, it's doing really, really well. We want this on Xbox. Here's a truckload of money. Go off and make it. Now, you have to be really, really careful about this. When you give something away for free, you are potentially devaluing it. Like the problem I was saying with the online websites with the agent stuff, and this is the problem that my distributor had with the idea of me giving everything away for free. He's worried that if I'm giving away really high quality broadcast sounds free, I'm devaluing the rest of his clients who he's selling stuff from. And this is one of the problems. So be careful what you choose to give away and how you give it away, because you don't want to devalue your work or your reputation. Alright? So it's a very fine line between I'm giving this away free because I've made this a strategic decision. I'm not just giving it away free because I just want it to be out there and everything like that. Because if you do it like that, then why is anybody ever going to pay you for it in the future? But if you give away a limited amount, or you give away under some sort of limitation, then people at least respect you a little bit. Because sometimes if you give everything away for free, you can lose respect.
I think there are counterexamples to that, like Shakespeare. His reputation is...
But I don't know if that's necessarily relevant, because if you take something from 500 years back, how is that relevant?
No, but I mean, now anyone can get a Shakespeare play for free.
But no, I'll counter that. The reason why, because we were talking about Trent Reznor, right? Trent Reznor, when they released their album, made tons and tons of money because they already had the reputation.
Yeah.
Once you've got a reputation, right? If I'm Kylie Minogue, I'm about the right height, but wrong shape, but if I'm Kylie Minogue and I say, I put something out free now and say, just pay whatever you want, I will make millions of dollars out of it because I've already got the fan base. If you're Joe Nobody, you've got to be careful because you don't
I think you can still build reputation by doing stuff like that.
I agree with that. I think it's an economy of scale. Like, if you're Trent Reznor and you have a really strong fan base, sure, you can make 500,000 units and sell them in 48 hours as they did. Sure, if you're a local Melbourne band or a local Brisbane band or a local Perth band, don't make 500,000 units. Make 5,000 units. Think about who of your fan base that you do know, as far as you can, within reason understand, how many of those people are likely to buy it and act accordingly. I think that saying that just because you're a small player means you can't look at some of these emerging models that are starting to come out. I think you definitely can, just don't be stupid about it. I would never sell 500,000 units of my album because I'm a terrible singer. I wouldn't even bother making 500,000.
Have you guys heard of the World of Goo experiment where they did, so that basically this was a video game where they, at one point they said we're going to let people pay whatever they want, and it was really successful. And the graph that came out of it, because they released their results, was fascinating. It had, $1 was right up there, and then it sort of came down a bit, and then it hit $5, and there was a big spike again. And then it went down to 0, and then it hit $10, and there was a big spike again. So it's like people... and it's people, there are values that they have in their heads already attached to that, and that's actually a way of just going, let the market decide what value they attach to this.
Well, and without having seen that specific instance, I suspect it might be going on similar to what happened with the CC license. We did some research around purchases of that album and what motivated them to buy free content. And although we got a lot of different responses and we've published some quite significant research data on that, one of the guys in particular that I interviewed, I think, summed it up perfectly. And he said, well, look, I really like Trent Reznor's music, and he's not on a label anymore, so you need food to live, and you need money to buy food. So if I don't buy the album, then Trent Reznor doesn't eat and dies and stops making music. But I think that's an important point. It was a flippant comment made by this interviewee, but he actually hit it right on the head. When you are engaging in the ways that people engage with content now, people think that that is a fair and reasonable approach, and they are far more willing to compensate because you're playing fair. You're not being the big bad company without creating those stereotypes, that is trying to control everything and tell you to bugger off and pay 100 times.
A lot of this
I think people are responsive to that.
A lot of this comes about as well because the audience or consumer has got so much more direct connection to the producer, the performer, the maker. And so
direct access.
You actually, exactly that point, you care about the fact that that person's going to continue producing. If you look at Amanda Palmer, she released I think her entire collection of actual physical objects, the last album release was 5 minutes, 15 minutes? She made something like 15,000 in 5 minutes. It's, you know, it's just a ridiculous kind of a number, and then they had to produce a whole new range of stuff. And so she went,